Do you agree that immigration is an issue that the conservatives don't want a solution to? They just want to leverage the outrage for their benefit. We saw many conservatives back down hard post-Dobbs. Yeah, it just doesn't feel like a real problem. Sometimes I wonder if maybe we really don't have that much of any real problems in the country, because it seems like we're not very eager to fix stuff. And I feel like we'd be more hungry for solutions if there were real problems. But then, like, I try to look at, like, at the end of the day, you know, you have, like, economic indicators. You've got, you've got stats that try to, like, point to things or approximate things or figure out, like, what's going on. Like, how would you describe this? You have, like, here's reality, okay? But reality is, like, it's obfuscated from us because no one person can look out into all of society and see all of reality, obviously, right? So we can't see this, right? So instead we measure, you know, all these, like, different stats, right? We can measure, like, GDP, we can measure, you know, the markets, we can look at things like inflation, we can look at, you know, like, real income, median income, all these different things, right? There's, like, all these little indicators, and the whole point of looking at these things is to try to get a picture of what is actually happening over here. But then there are also types of stats that we can get that are like real things. And ideally, the numbers that we collect here should help us get a picture of, like, the reality that's going on here. But then there's also other types of numbers that we can get to make sure that our numbers here are actually accurately tracking reality, because they're also lining up with this. So to give an example for two numbers that I'm kind of familiar with recently that's kind of weird is, as we talked about, like, the vibe session, and is the recession real? Do people actually feel bad? Is it like vibes, or what's going on? You know, what's happening? We're collecting all this data. Economists aren't really seeing it. So you're in this world where it's like, okay, well, the numbers don't seem to point to what people seem to be expressing. So either the people are wrong, which sounds improbable, or we're collecting the wrong numbers, or something is happening here. But then at the very, very, very end of all of these processes, we can actually look, okay, well, what are people actually spending money on? What are people actually buying? What are people actually doing with their money? And, like, a couple of weird things. I remember that for was it Black Friday? Like, I think the Black Friday sales, were the highest on record. And then I think just recently I saw that Americans are, I think, scheduled to travel, I think, more than ever more than ever before for the holidays. So, like, these are things like that are very downstream of the end, and it's like, okay, well, what's happening here so I don't know. Yeah, it's just hard. I don't know what's actually happening. It's hard to say. How do you square the generalization that men have low EQ with the generalization that men are manipulative in courting? How are women letting this happen? I don't know. I don't even know if I believe EQ is a thing. I'm not even sure, but I was seeing a lot of posts about the discounts being nothing and the sales sucking. Yeah, but I mean, like, people complain about things, but is that, like, what's actually happening? I'm not sure. I don't know.
Coming to bed, honey?
Yes, dear.
Okay. Sir, I've been watching some of your recent videos. May I ask why you are so pro-establishment? Well, because the establishment is, like, I like our current way of life, and reluctant to criticize things such as the Pentagon or anything the U.S. government does to a very large extent. I think you can be super critical of the government. I think we should always be critical of the government. I have no problem with that. But when you are running away doing like baseless conspiracy theories forever, you're not really being critical of the government. You're just kind of like wasting oxygen. A lot of this comes down to how people assess local versus global type things. People are terrible amateur sociologists. Look into how people assess their happiness on crime versus average. Oh, sure. Or, like, I don't know where that one thing came from. What the fuck is this? Oh, it's not really, okay. I don't know, where was that one? Somebody should link this because I don't want to make any of this up. Where are you going to look for it? I hate Google now. people's personal finances versus how they think the economy is doing. Positive view of the nation's economy edged lower after a modest uptick earlier this year. So at the end of 24, it was 23% total, and then 41%. I'm trying to think if this is a statistical artifact. Would it make sense that more people would think that their personal finances are doing good than the economy is doing good? I'm not sure. I've seen other numbers that make that even more dramatically different, like 60 versus 40 or 60 versus 30 something, but I don't remember offhand, so I can't, and I don't know. So. Haven't you said that real wages are historically high? Where did you get that from? Looking at median, the real median wages. What did you link? Median usual weekly earnings. This part here doesn't really count. This 2020 thing, you kind of have to discard in your head. If you've got a company that has 100 employees and the median, or we can even say the average, or we can say the median. Let's say you have 100 employees, your bottom employee earns $100 an hour, your top employee earns $100,000 an hour, and it like is pretty even throughout the whole like range of employees from 1 to 100. If you were to fire the bottom 50 employees, then your median earnings would go up dramatically, but it's probably not good for the health of the company if you have to fire half your workforce, right? Over COVID, you get this weird data artifact, and I'm saying artifact in that the data is real, but it's not telling you what you think it's telling you, and that median earnings were increased significantly during the pandemic, but it's not because the economy was doing really well. It's because a lot of your poor workers dropped out of the workforce here. Like a lot of your service workers and everything dropped out, so that shoved the median wages up really, really, really high. The real median wages up really high. Oh, these aren't even real. This is just nominal, I think. No. Nominal or real doesn't make sense. It's in, wait, am I mind fucking myself? Does real just mean inflation adjusted? Or does real, no. Inflation adjusted is accounting for CPI and everything. That's what it means to inflation adjust. Sorry, these are just median, so this is just nominal, right? Although this says adjusted dollars. No, CPI adjusted dollars. So these are real. This is real, sorry. But yeah, anyway, your wages were super, super high here, but that's just because a lot of your service sector workforce and everything dropped out of the economy because it was in lockdown, right? The other link is an OECD report that says OECD is not the United States, right? That's a whole ass thing. How many countries are in the OECD? Yeah, but have you ever considered that the economy is bad because of egg price? I mean, inflation is real, and I think I think that inflation is like one of the few things that people can like feel the effects of, like all over the country. I think that's like prices go up, people see it, but I think a lot of other things are harder to notice.
People have.
What is this? Interview with Tim Timmerman.
In 1990, Was convicted of killing Timmerman in 1997, throwing her into a lake weighted down and alive to keep her from testifying against him in a rape trial. Her body surfaced in Oxford Lake in the Manistee National Forest, giving the federal government jurisdiction. The Michigan Constitution banned the death penalty in 1847. The body of Rachel's 11-month-old daughter, Shannon Verhaeghe, was never recovered, despite repeated searches of the lake.
From the get-go, we offered to trade the death penalty for information regarding my granddaughter. We offered that from the very get-go. Gabriel was unwilling to tell us what he did with Shannon. So that's always remained an open hole in our heart. I think we've accepted that we're not going to see Shannon again. We've accepted.
Was convicted.
Wait, what?
Of killing
I don't understand. The daughter was thrown in a lake alive while weighed down. She was killed for being about to testify against the man who raped her. Timmerman notes that they had been willing to take the death penalty off the table if the murder would only reveal where the 11-month-old's body was. Biden commuted his sentence anyway. Oh.
Was convicted of killing Timmerman in 1997, throwing her into a lake weighted down and alive to keep her from testifying against him in a rape trial. Her body surfaced in Oxford Lake in the Manistee National Forest, giving the federal government jurisdiction. The Michigan Constitution banned the death penalty in 1847. The body of Rachel's 11-month-old daughter, Shannon Verhaeghe, was never recovered, despite repeated searches of the lake.
From the get-go, we offered to trade the death penalty for information regarding my granddaughter. We offered that from the very get-go. Gabriel was unwilling to tell us what he did with Shannon. So that's always remained an open hole in our heart. I think we've accepted that we're not going to see Shannon again. We've accepted.
Was convicted of killing.
This doesn't feel like a good thing for Democrats who need a national project to rebuild our brand and to focus on. I don't understand. He commuted the sentences of nearly every federal death row inmate to life in prison without a chance of parole. Oh. What was the rationale? Because he just doesn't like the death penalty, or? Gotcha. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the death penalty? I'm like slightly in favor of it, like 55-45 in favor of it. But I mean, like I could be moved either way. I don't know. I don't have like a huge opinion on it or anything. Or I'm not like strongly in favor or opposed to. Are the majority of people anti-death penalty? No. If I had to guess, my guess would be that like 95% of people in the United States are pro-death penalty, but they find ways to hide it in ways that make it seem like they're much less in favor of the death penalty than they actually are. So people will say things like, I'm not in favor of the death penalty, but what they're actually saying is, I don't think that these crimes are even that bad, so I don't think we should kill people for them. So, for instance, like if you go to like a leftist or whatever who says that they're anti, or no, I mean, this is true for all people. If you go to somebody who says, I'm against the death penalty, and he's like, oh, okay, I'm glad you feel that way because this guy raped and murdered 2 11-year-old children, they'd be like, huh, well, for that guy, I mean. And then like 5% people are like, well, I'm not pro-death penalty. But let's just say that when he goes to prison, I hope he gets raped and killed to death. I hope they murder him to death and rape him to death multiple times. It's like, okay. So, I don't know. What's the point of the death penalty beyond making us feel better? I don't know, punishment for committing a really, really, really egregious penalty, right? Oh, yeah, here it is. I think this is most people's positions. Yeah. I know it's a small issue, but what's your general opinion on like affirmative action shit? I mean, like, people will say shit like affirmative action is cringe and it doesn't matter and representation isn't important. And then they'll turn around and say, there was so much DEI that I completely 180'd every single political position I have in my life, which makes me think that, well, maybe things like representation and how people treat you and act like towards certain people, maybe that actually is important. So I don't know. Really makes you think. What is this? Don't you think innocent people being executed on death row is reason enough to abolish it? I don't know if I find that argument super convincing. I guess it would have to depend on the percentage of people that were innocently executed. Like I'm sure some percentage of people are innocently like sentenced to prison terms, right? But I don't know if you would get rid of all of prison because of that. But then again, I also don't know how important it is to even kill people. Like, what's the importance of like executing somebody versus putting them in jail for life? Yeah, I don't know. The percentage has to be less than 0.001%. For what? I don't think we accept that percentage for anything. But average hourly earnings of production and non-supervisory employees. Total private consumer price index for all urban consumers. Why would you get rid of supervisory employees? Okay. While being wrongly imprisoned is bad, you can't exactly unkill someone. You can release someone from prison even if it has lasting negative effects on their life. Well, I mean, let's say that somebody let's say that you got locked in prison for 10 years, and then you got released and then you were innocent. I mean, like, you can't get those 10 years back, right? Take 10 years off the judge. Based. The death penalty seems to end up being more expensive than life in prison also. Yeah, but that's not a convincing argument for anything, right? Because the only people that say the death penalty is more expensive than life in prison are usually people that are anti-death penalty. But if we were to make it more efficient and less expensive, not a single person using that argument would change their mind. So I don't think that matters much. As one of the largest anti-MAGA influencers, are you worried about personally being fucked with by the upcoming administration? Not really, but
I've spoken.
I don't know. The safety thing has got pretty spooky. I always used to, wait, did I used to say this joke? That like as long as people like Nick Fuentes were still alive, that I'd feel like pretty safe, and everything going on with him is. One thing I'm going to try, I have a friend coming over in a few days. So I'm going to spend like 3 days locked in a room thinking about this because I have to figure out like what is the direction I want to take my content, what is the direction I want to take my community, how much do I want to build bridges versus like cutting away people, like what do I want my project to be? These are all still ideas that are bouncing around in my head. I don't know how much more of like my psychological energy I can spend on people like this. Does Destiny just want to see bad people die basically? Like, if I had said that I was like 99-1 in favor of the death penalty, then maybe I could even then that would still be a stupid sentence. But I don't have a super strong opinion on it one way or another. Ugh.
The people have spoken. The people want change. And we're going to give it to them. They will get what they asked for. I think this is going to be the most transformative presidency, perhaps since the founding of the country. Perhaps since the founding of... I think this is going to be the most transformative presidency, perhaps since the founding of the country. And President Trump is picking the cabinet to do it. You can see the choices are people who are actually going to make change. It's not going to be business as usual. We're going to shake things up. It's going to be a revolution. And we're headed towards, I think, a fantastic future. I'm super excited. I look forward to experiencing that with everyone. Thank you.
If you favor rehabilitation, why do you support the death penalty? I don't think our current system is pure. I don't think our current system is rehabilitative at all, or it doesn't seem to be. OG, I know it's not comparable, but as someone who lives in a country with a literal dictator that actually arrested every dissident voices, from politicians to journalists to content creators, please don't underestimate MAGA or their fascistic ideas. Yeah, rip. I think I mentioned this before that like Rant was like screaming at me in real life. Not really screaming at me, but he was like really upset with a lot of the political stuff I've done over the past few years because he said that in his mind, you can't lightly take steps away from like liberalism. That like these are like your huge klaxons, your huge warning sirens, and that you can't take any of these things lightly. That if any of this ever starts happening, you have to like be sounding the alarms immediately, and you can't let it go too far. Otherwise, it's like it gets to be way too late, way too quickly. Are you worried that the U.S. is becoming an oligarchy? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know, man. The issue is that like nobody really knows like how any of our system works or like how any of it runs. So even if like big changes were to happen, people wouldn't even know that it's happening because they don't know what anything is supposed to do or
400 days, 400 days from Gavin Wax did that, Donald John Trump is going to raise his hand on a King James Bible and take the oath of office. His third victory in his second term. And the Viceroy, Mike Davis, tells me, since it doesn't actually say consecutive, that, I don't know, maybe we do it again in 28. Are you guys down for that? Trump 28? Come on, man. 400 days.
Thanks. Do you think this applies to the case of China and Taiwan? If we don't put resources into protecting Taiwan, then it'll be too late if China decides to annex them. Yeah, probably. You have to send those signals early on. I don't know if China would go after Taiwan, though, with Trump as president, because Trump doesn't want to look weak. But I think it depends a lot on the domestic situation here. Maybe if they do it sneakily, because for some reason Trump doesn't look weak when it comes to Ukraine, Russia. But I don't know why as much. Maybe because Russia's just not seen as our big enemy right now. Maybe it's more China. We shifted off of Russia. Maybe. I don't know. This is like the new talking point from the lefties. Oh God, I turned on Hassan's stream for like 20 seconds yesterday. When he pled not guilty, and Hassan and his whole chat were like cheering. What if he is actually the wrong dude, though? That would be kind of fucked. That'd be pretty funny. Everybody's convinced because of the eyebrows in the video or something. Would you ever run for office? Almost certainly not. I don't think I would ever enjoy it. I don't know if we've read too much legal shit or I'm watching just too much Suits or whatever, though. The more I think about it, if I were to just like say fuck all this and retire from streaming and just like do a real thing, the lawyer shit does look like a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. The litigating and being in court and all that. Historian. Reading and research is fun, but I think I have a good penchant for problem solving and like debate. And I feel like debate it's just like live problem solving or improvisational problem solving or like live implementation of problem solving. So it feels kind of wasted to just be like a reading person, I guess. Hold on, fuck. Wait, actually, fuck, holding on. That's he ignored my chat because he knows he's wrong. What did I ignore? What's bad about Luigi genuinely? He committed an act of terrorism. What do you mean he murdered a man in cold blood on the fucking street? It's fucking anarchy behavior. Not good. Probably not a good society when people are doing that. Probably not good when people are cheering it on. Do we call that terrorism? I mean, when you kill somebody for a political purpose in a goal to incite some political thing, I mean, probably. I mean, if anything is terrorism, wouldn't it be that? I mean, terrorism doesn't really have like a strict definition, but... Can't you be sympathetic to him and his cause, but also refute violence? What is his cause? I don't understand. Literally nothing is going to change and nothing good is coming out of this. If he's proven guilty of these crimes, I'll agree. Not sure why Destiny is making such solid statements before trial. I mean, I don't think this is like a thing that people are debating, did he do it or not? I think that the debate right now publicly is whether or not he had the right to do it. I mean, if you want to argue that it wasn't him, and I mean, I guess maybe it's not. I don't even know why you would make that argument. If it wasn't him, then obviously I wouldn't support any punishment for him. I think that's pretty obvious, but... What is this? Hold on.
If he's a serial killer, then...
Oh, you guys linked all this shit earlier. Have you seen Legal Eagle's take on this? Nope.
Healthcare killer Luigi Mangione has suspected United Healthcare killer Luigi Mangione has been charged with terrorism. But why? And also, why are federal prosecutors also indicting and prosecuting Mangione? Well, a New York State grand jury indicted Mangione on multiple charges related to the December 4th, 2024 shooting death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The charges included first-degree murder in the furtherance of terrorism and second-degree murder as a crime of terrorism, as well as additional counts of criminal possession of a weapon and possession of a forged instrument. Now, the terrorism charges are notable. The prosecutors argued that Mangione committed the murder to intimidate or coerce a civilian population or influence government policy, violating New York's anti-terrorism statutes. Mangione has been extradited to New York to face these charges. His attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, has indicated plans to contest the charges, asserting that DA Alvin Bragg overcharged Mangione. At the time of his arrest, authorities found a 3D printed ghost gun, a suppressor, and a handwritten manifesto expressing animosity towards the U.S. healthcare system. Now, as usual for my substantive questions about New York criminal law, I've reached out to former AUSA and current New York criminal defense lawyer Mitch Epner about the indictments and why the feds are involved. So Mitchell, what we have here looks like a pretty straightforward murder case, so why would Alvin Bragg decide to add the terrorism charge?
Well, let me start.
Murder case, so and why the feds are involved. So Mitchell, what we have here looks like a pretty straightforward murder case, so why would Alvin Bragg decide to add the terrorism charge?
Is there like a charging document or anything for the Luigi guy? I don't understand where this, people keep saying terrorism charge. Are they just talking about the first degree murder thing, or is there a separate state charge for terrorism? He explains it in the video? Okay. Because when we looked at the terrorism thing, that was just the element that they were using to make it first degree murder. Also, this fucking, God, this guy is cringe. Wait, am I getting it right? The mayor of New York City? Also, people keep posting these things on Reddit like, oh, they need 4 cops to hold him down because he's so buff and epic. Oh, they're walking him with 20 cops, blah, 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 because he's so fucking strong and they're scared that all the CEOs are going to die. No, they're walking with a ton of cops because you fucking retards are idolizing him and worshiping him in public, and they probably don't want somebody trying to break him out. Like, I don't know why Everybody keeps posting this fucking everywhere. It's so cringe. Do you agree with the terrorism charge or no? It didn't look like, or at least I couldn't find, that he was charged with terrorism. In New York State, it looks like in order to have a first-degree murder charge, it looks like you have to add, there needs to be a second element to it that boosts it to first-degree murder. So you're guilty of murder in the first degree when, with the intent to cause the death of another person, he causes the death of such a person or a third person, and then you need one more element. And it looks like the element that they went with was the 13 here, is the victim was killed in furtherance of an act of terrorism, as defined in paragraph B of subdivision 1 of section 49, or 490.05 of this chapter. And I think when we read it, it seemed like it probably fit here. But it sounds like this is what they're using to make it a first-degree murder. I don't know if this is just like a special type of first-degree murder or, but I don't know, maybe he'll go over in his video, I guess, yeah.
Well, let me start, Devin, by agreeing with you. This is a very strange choice by the prosecution. They may have managed to indict Mr. Mangione for the one crime that he has a good defense.
Can you plead against an element, i.e. the charge, you mean e.g. is, for example, right? Or is i.e. such as? E.g. is for example, right? Can you plead against an element of the charge? No, I think you either plead guilty or not guilty. I don't know if you can plead guilty to some charges and then plead not guilty to other charges. I think you just enter one plea, no? I.e. that is, oh, wait, hold on. Can you plead not guilty to some charges and guilty to others? You must be able to plead not guilty to some and guilty to others. I feel like I have people that have given me logins to this shit and I don't know what it is. My guess is that you can plead not guilty to some charges. I doubt it would have to be all or nothing.
To indict Mr. Mangione for the one crime that he has a good defense to. The reason for bringing a murder one charge, which is a very particular thing under New York law, as opposed to a murder two charge, is I think they want the headlines of saying that they charged him with murder one as opposed to murder two. And we can talk in a moment about what the substantive differences are between them. But the most basic difference in terms of if they get a conviction is if he is convicted of murder one under these circumstances, the required punishment will be life without the possibility of parole. Whereas if he's only convicted of murder two without the special circumstances of terrorism, there would be the possibility that 20 years down the road, he would be eligible for parole. Having said that, I cannot imagine a circumstance under which Mr. Mangione would be considered a good candidate for parole at any point in his life.
Is there any substantive difference between murder two and murder one with the terrorism charge?
Yeah, that's the big thing. There is a difference in penalty because if convicted of murder one on the basis of terrorism, then the penalty is required to be life without possibility of parole.
Okay, and if Mangione is convicted of murder two and was up for parole, do you think he would be continually denied?
I think it's the latter. I think that if he is convicted on murder two, and he lives long enough to see his parole date, there would be a pro forma parole hearing.
Have you seen people claiming he's not getting a fair trial because of the judge's stock portfolio? Yeah, I've heard because the judge is dating somebody. Where's Pisco, actually? I have a really interesting question. If he's in here, little fuck boy.
Years from now, 30 years from now, and it would be like the early scenes in Shawshank Redemption where they just rubber stamped denied each time.
What makes someone a good or bad candidate for parole?
A bad candidate for parole is somebody who committed a crime of violence, check, who did it with malice aforethought, check, and who seemed to show no remorse, check. no matter what he does in the future, I cannot imagine a situation where a parole board would say this man, Luigi Mangione, appears to have understood that what he did was wrong, since he seems so clearly at this moment to believe that what he did was right.
So what is the process?
Hey, hello.
Merry Christmas, my brother. How are you?
Merry Christmas Eve, bitch. In some countries, they have like really strict gag orders about talking about any stuff related to an ongoing trial. And then in the United States, obviously, we're very, very open about it beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that in general? What do you think is the right course there in terms of like a jury and everything else? Yeah.
I think that I'm a free speech kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it makes sense to have pretty lax laws about having these trials be public, having people like have access to the documents, and having free and open discourse about it. I'm just a little bit of a free speech guy, so I like our system. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have strong feelings one way or another. I can see arguments on both sides that like how do you, assuming a thing has gotten like a certain amount of publicity, how do you ever find like an unbiased jury to come in and like make a decision?
Yeah, it's kind of like a legal fiction. Yeah, like the Trump case. We just have to, and the fact that judges are presumed to be impartial as well. I mean, it's just is there a better system?
No, but I mean, like a judge, I mean, you can hope, because a judge, one, has to rule on a ton of different cases, and then two, has some level of like training and sometimes is elected or at least appointed. Like you're hoping there's some qualification there, but for a jury, it should just be like a jury of ordinary citizens, right?
I think DGG should be a professional jury pool. They're just like really good at finding shit out. What do you think about that?
Finding shit out. Are they good at making judgments of right or wrong, though? Or whether or not somebody is guilty or not guilty?
They're kind of a cult. Do you think that your fan base is a little bit of a cult? Like you'll say something and they'll follow it?
I mean, if that's the definition of a cult, then sure. But I mean, like literally every single thing in the world would be a cult at that point, right?
They're loyal to you, though. Don't you think?
Not as loyal as some fan bases are.
No, I think that DGG would be an excellent jury pool. It's for some of these high-profile cases, it's like impossible not to have some influence, or I should say, some visibility of current events, like the Trump trial. How do you like ignore the fact that Trump was the president when you're, litigating whether he's guilty of falsification of his records or of the other crimes?
Yeah,
Seems hard to disentangle the public nature of it.
Yeah, it's probably really difficult. I think that's probably why in closing statements in criminal cases, a lot of the times you'll hear like the plaintiff or the defense will literally repeat like, these are your instructions. Remember, you can only convict if they did this. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. Yeah, they'll like repeat those jury instructions because it's so important to make sure the jury understands what they're actually returning a verdict on. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you're allowed to introduce evidence for one purpose, but not another. So, for example, let's say that you have a statement that is hearsay, but you're allowed to introduce it to show that the person who asserted it is, not a credible witness.
Sure.
The judge literally has to instruct you. You can't use this statement for the truth of the matter asserted, only for the credibility of the witness. And the human brain just like doesn't work like that. It's not really easy to be like, hey, you can consider this hearsay statement, but only insofar as it lends to the credibility of this witness, but you can't consider it as truth or false. I think a lot of these are just pretend little games we play. At the end of the day, we hope that it helps insulate some improper considerations, but I don't know how much these jurors are parsing out the different purposes and the bunch of different instructions they're getting for each like particular piece of evidence sometimes. So I don't know.
A lot of these are probably like ammo that jurors themselves can use too, right? Like I imagine if they go back and they're fighting with each other, a jury might say,
I said we're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, we're not supposed to have, we can't consider this. Yeah. I've had emails from a lot of lawyers, criminal people that also complain that like there are like objections and you can strike things from the record and you can do this as well. But like apparently every litigator knows it does criminal law that like you can't ever really strike something from a jury's mind. So even if something is done improperly, like if a jury's heard something, it's like that's probably always going to be considered. Yeah.
That's why for some of part of the motion that Trump was putting forth to get rid of the New York case, one of the reasons that it was denied is because his lawyer kind of like introduced it and kind of opened the door to certain testimony. And then you can see like, well, how come you're allowed to go into the official act stuff or my communications with an actual government employee? Well, if you open the door to it, you're kind of waiving it, right? So I can understand why, like, once you open the door, once you ring the bell, it's hard to unring it. And now we have to have like an open playing field. Oh,
sure. That's like if I'm on a criminal trial, if I'm a defendant and somebody wants to say that like, oh, well, we've got evidence here that this guy is actually like he lies about everything he says or whatever, that might be character evidence that is not admissible because it's not related to the crime. But if I am, as part of my defense, if I bring up like unrelated stuff to show that I am like of high character and I never lie, then you can admit that character evidence to rebut like positive character evidence. Right?
Have you been doing evidence reading? Jeez.
Well, no.
When's your lawyer arc?
Look up. Yeah. Well, I've been watching Suits a lot, so I'm going to do that corporate stuff like you do. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Like, you're not supposed to offer bolstering testimony to show that you're of good moral character with like specific instances. It's pretty complicated sometimes, but and the distinctions are a little weird. But if some party opens the door on shit, then remember when the Rittenhouse trial happened? Like, I believe the prosecutor those evidentiary hearings or the pre-trial evidence stuff, because there was one thing that the prosecutor explicitly asked about entering. I think it had to do with a statement that Rittenhouse had made outside of a store beforehand, and he tried to bring that up in the trial. And I think the judge dismissed the jury and everything, and like basically excoriated him in the courtroom after the jury was gone because he tried to bring that up after the judge had explicitly denied him the ability to do that. Oof, yeah.
I think 20% of your political problems, of you specifically, Stephen, your political problems can be traced back to Kyle Rittenhouse deciding to go to defend property that day.
Deciding to, do you really? Maybe, I don't know.
Like, how much worse is your life that Kyle Rittenhouse is cringe as fuck and is like a big Trump guy? I feel like that's made your, or do you think that makes your life better because you're more credible?
Well, yeah, I was going to say it depends on how you view it, because like in a very downstream way, probably all of my big conservative debates happened because of the Rittenhouse thing and because that thing got me some credibility with people on the right.
And now you got the Luigi
guy, yeah. But I just.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. It feels gross, and I don't want any of it. Like I tweeted out the other day yesterday, something like all the people crying about Rittenhouse are now like cheering on the Luigi guy, which I thought was crazy. And obviously I get like a ton of people underneath this tweet who are like, wow, base tweet, I actually agree with this. But like every single person that's saying base tweet, I agree, are all probably J6 deniers. It's like, I don't like any of you people either.
What's your best good faith interpretation of like the leftist embrace of Luigi in view of their hatred of Kyle Rittenhouse? What's your best interpretation of that?
Well, I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse is a defender of structures relating to capital control and white supremacy, and he was just exercising that power difference as he goes to a community that's negatively impacted by white supremacist communities, white supremacist police force, and finds himself in a conflict that could have easily been avoided because he was looking from the very beginning to kill anybody that identified with the other side. And then for the Luigi stuff, Luigi represents basically an ordinary citizen who is striking out against the ownership class, who through a complicated exchange of lobbying and big business and capitalist owners and CEOs and shareholder value are seeking to perpetually oppress U.S. citizens and cut off their access to healthcare in order to enrich themselves. And it's come to the point where the only way to stop that is through violent means. And the most effective people to target are the owners of companies, basically, right?
Do you think that if the killing had been, this was a brutal bushwhacking, all right? Mm-hmm. But suppose that it were like they light them on fire like they did that woman in the subway. Do you think that would, like, if it were more horrific, or if it were sexual in nature, or if it were with a knife, do you think that changes anything?
Well, sexual in nature is a whole different thing. If it was like setting them on fire or something, I think that the support would be quite a bit not quite a bit. I think there would be people around the margins that would fall off, but I don't know if it would change it substantially. But I think it would probably be a bit less, yeah.
Here's my issue with all this is it feels like there are very few people that are parsing out each of these incidents that run the gamut from like clearly justified to incredibly unjustified and having some kind of reasonable basis to distinguish based on like the law and facts, as opposed to, oh, well, my analysis for the Daniel Perry or whatever is he's like, it falls along my social ideology or my cultural values, or in the case of like,
I think that's the vast majority of it, but yeah.
It's like, it has a lot to do with identity and not so much about the particulars of the self-defense or the use of force in each particular case.
Yeah, of course.
Like the Fuentes case, another, I think, good example of that, where, what do you think of that? That was pretty wild. That's like an attack on his, not the Mace incident, but the attempted assassination.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, obviously it was really bad. Yeah, of course, that was insane, yeah.
But I saw some people being like, based, like, they're pissed off that the assassins like weren't successful. I don't know. To me, it has me more thinking like of the Trump situation, the Trump assassination attempt, that all this shit is bad, and we shouldn't be like glorifying killing on purpose for no reason.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing in general. Once you've hit the point where you're starting to kill people over your political differences, it's probably never a good thing.
Yeah. How are you?
Just chilling. Waiting for the new year to roll around so I have a new direction and everything, yeah.
Yeah, some good shit. Well, listen, I want to wish everyone in DGG a very happy holiday and Merry Christmas. I think you guys are a good community, and I hope nothing but the best for you all in the year to come.
Oh. Well,
all right.
I love you too. Happy Merry Christmas. I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah. Talk soon.
Have fun. Bye. Okay.
Prosecution needs to prove for murder 1 with a terrorism aggravated factor on top of what they would normally need to show for murder in the second degree.
So murder in the second degree is very simple. You intended to kill somebody. You did it intentionally, you didn't do it in self-defense. That is as open and shut a case as I can imagine, because they have Mr. Mangione doing it on videotape, approaching somebody from behind, shooting him 3 times, starting in his leg, and then shooting him twice in the back. And I take at face value the public disclosures that they have many different ways to tie Mr. Mangione to the murder, including the fact that he was found in possession of the murder weapon. So that is as open and shut a murder 2 case as I can imagine. Murder 1, on the other hand, will require proof as to what Mr. Mangione was thinking at the time he did this. And they would have to prove, and I'm reading now, intent to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion, or affect the conduct of a unit of government. And that is a very hard thing to prove. They will have to prove that when he killed Mr. Thompson, he didn't do it because he hated Mr. Thompson alone, or because he hated the way Mr. Thompson ran United Healthcare alone, but rather that he had some broader policy agenda to intimidate people in order to change the way in which government worked or the general populace conduct.
I mean, this is going to come down. I didn't read any of the manifesto shit because I can't tell what's being released. It's real or not real or whatever the fuck. But assuming the manifesto and everything is real, I feel like this might be like pretty easy now. But
themselves. That's a very hard thing to do. One of the basic...
You mean he literally had the bullets inscribed? Was there actual writing on the casings? Is that true?
Things that I was taught as a trial practitioner is keep it simple, stupid. The KISS principle. If you can win your case by proving 4 things, don't try to increase the degree of difficulty by proving 12 things.
Well, but you're talking about 2 different charges though, right? In New York State, can you charge first and second degree? Fuck, why is it that in some cases you can, or in some states you can do this and in some states you can't? I don't know if I don't know in New York State if it's like this or not. I don't even know where the fuck I would look this up. But
the increase in what they have to prove here.
bro, just read the indictments. Are those public? Indictments, Luigi. I don't know if you have to, I don't know when you make an indictment or not, or why you need an indictment versus just like an arraignment. You read somebody's charges. This is federal. I don't care. I don't know if there's like a New York State like indictment or charging document for him. New York charges. Oh, there is. Hold on. Oh, grand jury indictment, everything. Okay. Do they always do grand jury indictment? Okay, so we have murder in the first degree, and we have murder in the second degree as a crime of terrorism. The first degree violation. Okay, this also is the terrorism thing, to make it murder in the first degree. I wonder why they have murder in the second degree as a crime of terrorism. What does that mean? Penal Law 12525, Section 1, New York State. Murder in the second degree. Huh. I don't know what the, as a crime of terrorism, I don't know what this add-on means. The defendant in the County of New York on or about December 4th, 2024, with the intent to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion or affect the economy. Murder in the second degree. I don't know why you knew that for murder in the second degree, no clue. And then they have just an ordinary, oh, maybe there's like a greater penalty if it's as a crime of terrorism. And then you also have the third count is just murder. Okay, so you can charge, I don't know if this is called charge down the line. I feel like I heard that expression once and then I said it. And then I feel like somebody said they don't call it charging down the line. Or maybe it's called lesser incorporated charges might be it too. I don't remember, something like that. When you charge one, it automatically assumes the other. I don't know. Okay. Murder in the second degree is a crime of terror. Okay. And then third count, as the grand jury has said, by this indictment further accuses them of murder of the second degree without any terrorism thing. And then criminal possession of a weapon, criminal possession of a weapon, criminal possession of a weapon, criminal possession of a weapon. Okay. Oh, all the magazines. Okay.
Here is enormous, and I think it violates the KISS principle very fundamentally.
It's reported that Mangione's manifesto reads, quote, "Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly 42 in life expectancy. United is the indecipherable largest company in the US by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy. No, the reality is this indecipherable have simply gotten too powerful, and that they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously."
Oof. I feel like this is going to be, would this not count as terrorism? I feel like it's going to be hard to escape when you're literally writing manifestos. Oh, man.
The problem is more complex, but I do not have the space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument, but many have illuminated corruption and greed decades ago, and the problems simply remain. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. So is it possible that a jury could look at these writings and conclude beyond reasonable doubt that by executing the CEO of United Healthcare, he did intend to bring about some kind of change in US healthcare for the purposes of the terrorism aggravated factor?
They'd have to prove much more than that. They would have to prove not just that he intended to bring about change, but that he intended to do it by intimidating the people in the government. It's not enough to raise the issue and say, hey, here are the things that I think are bad about United Healthcare, why I'm deciding to kill this person. But they essentially have to put the people in government in fear that if they don't act to make the changes that he's advocating, that they will get killed also. That's what...
I don't know what the standard is for this type of crime is. Like I don't know what other I don't know like what the precedence is or how many other cases have been charged like this and what they have to prove.
What a terrorism enhancement looks like.
Now, obviously, if you're charged with terrorism, you'll want a good lawyer. But if you want a great lawyer, let my law firm, the Eagle Team, help. If you've gotten in a car crash, suffered a data breach, especially if you got a data breach letter saying your information might have been leaked, or are dealing with a workers' comp or social security issue, we can represent you or help find you the right attorney. Because it's so important to talk to a lawyer right away so you can maximize your recovery. And by the way, we don't get paid unless you do, so there's nothing up front. So just click on the link in the description or call the phone number on screen for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle Team. It seems to me that one reason of including murder in the first degree with a terrorism aggravated factor is that the prosecution's very confident that they will get a conviction on murder too, which is a lesser included offense. What do you think about that?
Okay, lesser included offense. Okay.
That's possible. I think it's also highly possible that they've done it because they want the headlines of saying they're seeking murder in the first degree.
Now, by bringing in this terrorism charge, is it possible that the prosecutors are making their lives unnecessarily difficult in a way that might backfire?
So there are a couple of additional thoughts. One is that the problem for the prosecution in doing it this way is when they make his intent not just relevant, but an element of the crime, they're going to give him, if they go to trial, the world's biggest soapbox to say all of these things. And that is raising the possibility of jury nullification. Jurors may or may not agree with what he did. Some jurors might identify with Mr. Thompson, but some jurors might think that United Healthcare is a really awful organization and have sympathy with Mr. Mangione, or at least Mr. Mangione's grievances against United Healthcare. All of that could have been kept out of a murder 2 trial, and all of that would have to come into a murder 1 trial. And then the second thing is Mr. Mangione has as his attorney Karen Friedman Agnifilo, who is was a veteran of about 30 years in the Manhattan DA's office. She left relatively recently. She is as well-versed, well-connected, and well-experienced a lawyer as you're going to find. And I suspect that any good defense argument she will raise. They do not have a walkover here. They have a very skilled advocate on the other side.
And any idea when this trial will be scheduled and actually take place?
I have no idea when trial will take place. I am certain that the defense, given the fact that Mr. Mangione will be held without bail almost certainly at Rikers, which is about as bad a place as you can find on the planet.
What would you tell a group of friends who just support this guy because healthcare bad, too much profits? I would say, why don't you get mad at the hospitals for turning patients down?
We'll want to have trial as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Mitch, but hold tight because I have a few questions about the federal prosecution as well. Now, the Department of Justice has also indicted Mangione of murder through the use of a firearm, 2 stalking charges, and a firearms offense. The federal prosecutors claimed jurisdiction because Mangione traveled in interstate commerce when he took a bus from Atlanta to New York before the shooting. And the indictment alleges that he used interstate facilities by using a cell phone and the internet to plan and carry out the stalking, shooting, and killing of Brian Thompson in the vicinity of West 54th Street and 6th Avenue in Manhattan. And as part of that showing, they charged Mangione with 2 counts of stalking. Basically, the federal prosecutors seem to be establishing that they have jurisdiction for the prosecution. Now, some of the highlights of the affidavit by FBI agent David Cobb include a photograph of the gun that agents found with Mangione, a handwritten diary with entries such as, quote, "I'm glad in a way that I've procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about acronym for company number 1. The notebook entry also stated that the target is insurance because it checks every box." End quote. The investor conference is a true windfall, and most importantly, the message becomes self-evident.
Why are more people mad at insurance companies rather than hospitals? Because for a hospital, you can see what they do that provides like a service to society. It feels good. They have doctors and they heal people. And for any kind of insurance company, it feels like they're just there to fuck you over, basically. Keep in mind too, like what insurance like represents and what it means and like the types of like where are you at in life when you deal with insurance, right? It's always going to be at the worst parts of your life. Nobody is ever happy. Like the fact that you're, it's like the joke that you make, like when I'm calling a lawyer or whatever, and like, oh, hey, how are you doing today? And it's like, well, obviously not very good because I'm calling you, right? Yeah, like obviously this is not a good day for me. I've got to fucking make a call to you. It's the same thing with insurance as well, right?
And later on in the entry, the notebook describes an intent to, quote, whack the CEO of one of the insurance companies at the investor conference. There's also a letter addressed to the, quote, feds, which reads, quote, I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial, some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, and a lot of patience. The Fed letter also states, quote, P.S. You can check serial numbers to verify this is all self-funded, my own ATM withdrawals. Now, needless to say, this does not look good for Mangione from a criminal defense perspective. So let's go back to Mitch Epner. Mitch, why do you think it was important for the feds to indict for the same conduct here?
I would absolutely expect that once the Trump administration is in place, that they will seek the death penalty against Mr. Mangione.
I thought you were broke before. Did you forget avoiding hospital visits or emergency vehicles because they are way overpriced in our country? I've never had to call an ambulance before, number one. And number two, I had a military dependent ID card, so I could always go to base if I needed to go to a hospital or something. And that shit is free as fuck. I can't speak to all of the VA or everything else or whatever. I know that it's like a big meme publicly to shit on the VA all the time. In my personal experience, military-related health insurance is fucking insane, like insanely good, and is probably too good because my grandma abused the fuck out of it. My parents abused the fuck out of it, and it always seemed like it was fucking free. My grandma was the kind of person who would go to the emergency room or take us to the emergency room if we had like a sniffle. Like if she took our temperature and we had like a fever of like 99.8, like we were going to the emergency room, and we would always get antibiotics or some stupid crazy shit. It was a huge, it was fucking retarded. But that was, I don't know. Yeah.
Which is, as I just said, a penalty that would not be available if there were a prosecution under New York State.
That obviously doesn't apply to all Americans. Can you speak to the average person? I don't know, the average person for what? The average person has healthcare or health insurance through their work. I don't remember if I had health insurance through my casino job. I probably did, but I don't think I never had a call. I'm not a very sick person, so I don't know what you want to.
State law.
And who's likely to prosecute first, the federal government or the state?
I know for a fact that there are laws and rules about how the decision gets made by the courts about which prosecution goes first. I imagine that over the next few weeks and months, that will be sorted out. Ordinarily, this gets sorted out by an agreement amongst the prosecutors about which case will go first. So under those circumstances, ordinarily you would expect that the state and the feds would decide who went first. Here, given the relationship between the New York law enforcement authorities who prosecuted Donald Trump only recently in the Manhattan DA's office and the Trump DOJ, I'm not certain that will.
Why does it sound like he's recording next to a highway? He has some kind of really harsh noise gate on that's like suppressing background noise when he's not speaking into his mic, and he has an air conditioner running or a fan. So when he's not talking, it's muted, but when he's talking, you're hearing that fan or AC come through. That's the background noise.
Only recently in the Manhattan DA's office and the Trump DOJ, I'm not certain that will be a easy conversation. We'll keep paying attention.
Thanks so much, Mitch. It's always incredible to talk to people who have a completely different point of reference when it comes to the law. Now, this video was only possible with the help of today's sponsor, Nebula. Now, my first video on the United Health murder and Luigi Mangione was completely demonetized and age-gated on YouTube. 1.1 million people watched the first video in the first day, and then basically no one else saw it afterwards. In that video, I showed the surveillance footage, and apparently YouTube didn't like that, which is crazy because it was blurred, and according to community guidelines, it shouldn't have been a problem. But I don't have to worry about that on Nebula, the streaming site that my friends and I created from scratch. On Nebula, you can watch all of our videos ad-free and early because our videos always go up on Nebula first. Plus, there's tons of exclusive content, and for a limited time, you can get a lifetime membership. Wow. You can buy once and then never again. It's the greatest deal of all. And if you're new here, Nebula includes tons of exclusive videos from me, original series from your favorite people, movies, plays, classes, and more. I've heard it described as Netflix for people who like trains, with your favorites like Johnny Harris, Neo, Jet Lag, Real Engineering, Real Life Lore, and your most favorite, Legal Eagle. And exclusives on Nebula are incredible. Recently, I was watching the Rift Tracks commentary of Plan 9 from Outer Space. It was a perfect video for Halloween, and I'm really looking forward to the film that my friend Patrick Willems is creating called The Dinner Plan, filled with people that you've probably seen before. And you can see exclusive Legal Eagle videos like my documentary Bad Law Words Good, and other content that just wouldn't fit on YouTube, like my full-length interview with the screenwriter My Cousin Vinny, and the Not Safe for Work video about lawsuits that are too hot for YouTube.
Whoa.
Because what's truly special about Nebula is that it's a creator-owned platform built by me and other YouTubers and podcasters, and because it's a subscription service, we get to work on larger, higher-budget productions than we ever could anywhere else.
How would you fix that, Destiny? Fix what?
It's becoming the answer to the question, how do you get Hollywood-level production value without Hollywood-level BS? And for those of you that want to share everything Nebula has to offer with your friends and family this holiday season, Nebula is now offering annual gift cards. So if you sign up using the link that's on screen right now, you can give a year of Nebula to a friend for 40% off the yearly subscription. That's a year of the best content for just $36. And it's a gift that you can give to yourself, by the way, because you deserve it. So get 40% off of you or a friend's yearly subscription for just $36, or you can check.
Oh, the audio thing? I don't know. I get different people say different things. At first I had no noise gate, and then some people get mad because they hear background noise. Then I set a really harsh noise gate, and then some people get really mad because it comes in and out. So now I have like a medium-ish noise gate, so if there's background noise, it's a little quieter, but it's not super harsh, so you can kind of hear it. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I think it's okay right now.
Check out the lifetime deal where for $300, you get access to Nebula forever. Now we're investing in more big concept, high octane Nebula originals, and your lifetime subscription goes towards that investment. In a way, lifetime is the best possible deal of all. But either way, you'll get all my videos early, get access to exclusives, and support the ambitious projects that my friends and I are working on our own streaming site. So sign up now and get you or a friend 40% off of Nebula, or get the incredible lifetime deal by clicking on the link below. And after that, click on this link over here for more Legal Eagle, or I'll see you in court.
Wow.